In this episode of Retiring Today, we talk about widowhood in retirement.
How to plan up front for survivorship situations.
And steps you can take as a survivor going to and through retirement.
Join us for Retiring Today. Welcome to Retiring Today. I'm here with Abby Huntrods and Lauren Merkle. Lauren is a certified financial planner and Abby is an investment advisor. And the topic of today's show, guys, it's not necessarily, the most fun or uplifting thing to talk about, but it's a really necessary part of your retirement plan, and that is what to do when one of the spouses dies. So we're talking about kind of widowhood in retirement today. And Abby, you're going to set us up first with just the stats. The stats are that most likely a woman will outlive her husband.
Yes, absolutely. So the current life expectancy for women is 89, and the life expectancy for a male today is 86. So statistically speaking, women are going to live longer.
That's correct. So right now, if you're sitting at home and you're retired or maybe 10 years out from retirement, here's the good news, and you're still married. There are things you can do right now to help you kind of look at what that retirement looks like when your spouse does die. So Lauren, what are the things that people should be talking about with their advisor right now?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just have the first start with the conversation amongst yourself. Start with the conversation of here's what we both want to have happen once one of us passes, whether it's the male or the female, the husband or wife, doesn't matter. Talk amongst yourself and figure out this is what we want to have happen once one of us passes. This is what we want to have happen with what's left over once we are both gone. And that's going to start the conversation with the advisor, because what the advisor needs is that type of information. What are you really trying to accomplish? What are some of the concerns that you have with one of them passing? And with that, of course, we're talking some of the financial concerns. The plan needs to be structured in a way, regardless of which one passes first, that the surviving spouse has an avenue, has a path to continue on whatever that surviving spouse wants to do from a financial standpoint. So first is a conversation amongst yourself, figure out what's next, what you both want to have accomplished, and then have that conversation with the advisor, so when you're constructing that plan, then it is much easier for that advisor to hit those key points of what it is you're both trying to accomplish.
And Abby, something people could be doing, right now today after they watch this show is putting together everything, maybe a binder, maybe a Word document, whatever that looks like for people. What kinds of things should they get together so that both spouses have access to them?
Yeah, so it's important to get organized. A lot of times one spouse kind of takes the reins with the investments, so the account logins, where are all of our different investments located at, and what's the information to access those accounts down the road. The other thing is to review any estate planning documents that you've already established. So a lot of times we sit down with families and they have a trust established or they have a will, but in the will the children are referenced as minor children and now they're in their 30s. So making sure that stuff is up to date and that you know where it's at, because a lot of times maybe it got put into a safety deposit box a long time ago and you kind of forgot where it was physically located. So those are some important things to kind of get organized.
And Lauren, all of this too is to try to take the burden off the surviving spouse, because clearly the emotional loss is going to be there, but to have a financial burden sort of lifted a little is really important.
It helps out quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot of financial or emotional pain that you go through when you lose a spouse, and so we don't want to add on top of that with the financial burden or the financial anxiety of not knowing what's next from a financial standpoint, not having the answers to the questions. Am I going to be financially okay? Can I still live the retirement that I want to live? And that's why we developed that plan, and we encourage all retirees to have that written comprehensive plan to make sure that you're taken care of while you're both alive, but also make sure the surviving spouse is taken care of when the first spouse passes. And you were talking about having all of your documents organized in this written plan. That's a great way to start that organization. Have the comprehensive plan, which shows it's a list, an itemization of all the different financial accounts you have. You can incorporate with this plan your will document, your trust document, your health directives, all these different things that when a surviving spouse looks for this financial information, it's all in one neat place. But also when the surviving spouse passes, Now the kids find it, and they know where all mom and dad's money is, and they can go to that institution, and it's a much smoother, much easier transition.
Abby, what about pensions, 401ks? Are we going to the same place?
That's what I was going to say. So getting organized, having that written plan is a good start for all of the reasons that Lauren talked about, but then also so that you understand the different sources of income and how they're going to change in retirement. If your husband passed first and he had a pension, but he took, straight life payout, which means that upon his death, the pension would stop. Understanding all of those income streams and how those are going to change at the point of one or the other spouse passing away is important up front, so that you know kind of what to expect and where you're potentially headed upon being the surviving spouse.
And you guys talked about updating maybe a will or a trust. When I think about those things, I think about an attorney. Do I start with my financial advisor, work to my attorney, or what do you guys advise people to do?
Well, what our families usually do is they start with us, because we start to build that retirement plan, which includes that legacy plan. First of all, do you need a trust? If so, what type of trust? What are you trying to accomplish with the trust? How does the will that you have or need to be updated work with the trust? So we design that all within the plan, and then if we need to write a trust or update some of those documents, then we can say, if you have an attorney that you trust and want to work with, have that attorney do the legal work. Or if you need an attorney, then we can often point you in the right direction based on what you're trying to accomplish.
And because you guys specialize in kind of working with pre-retirees and retirees, I'm sure that people ask you a lot of times, how much should I put aside for a funeral? And that's a conversation you guys have.
That's a great question. So in that type of life situation, there's a lot of different options that you have as far as covering the funeral expenses, the burial expenses. You can prepay those types of things in advance with certain companies, or just set aside savings to cover those expenses. So really it's just what you're comfortable with from a planning standpoint. The biggest thing, the most important thing from our perspective is that that's going to be a really hard time in your life. You just lost someone that you potentially spent your entire lifetime, as a partner, doing life with, and it's not always expected. So the more that you can plan in advance for those types of things, the better off you're going to be, because you don't have to then think and make those decisions in the moment when you emotionally, probably aren't in a great frame of mind to do so.
Yeah, so those are some good things that you can do right now to start planning for this kind of an event in retirement. And we'll continue to talk about what you do when you become a widow in retirement when Retiring Today continues.
You have worked for a long time. There are so many decisions to make about your retirement. How much income do you need? How not to run out of money? Now is your chance, and you get one shot to get it right. Attend Merkle Retirement Planning's Passport to Retirement. We will discuss how to create tax-free income, how to avoid the next market meltdown, and how to wring every dime out of Social Security. Your time is now. Classes fill quickly. Call or text today. Zero cost to attend.
You made it. Years of hard work, investing, planning, and now you are here. The long-awaited reward you spent a lifetime looking forward to. But what now? After years of growing a nest egg, now you may want to manage it. Use it to fund your dreams. Make it last as long as you need it, and leave some for those you love. So what do? Wall Street continues to be uncertain, and some conservative options have dropped to the floor. How do you maintain opportunities for growth and reduce risk of loss from market changes? That's where we come in. We are Merkle Retirement Planning, your personal retirement planners. From investments to tax reduction strategies and creating your blueprint to retirement guide. Have the confidence to retire today. You worked a lifetime to get here. Let us help you enjoy it to the fullest. For a complimentary visit, contact us today. Merkle Retirement Planning.
to Retiring Today. In this episode, we're talking about widowhood and retirement. In the first segment, we talked about some of the things you can do right now to plan for that, widowhood and retirement. And I'm here with Abby Huntrod. She's an investment advisor. Lauren Merkle, he's a certified financial planner. This is something they sit down with families and they talk about these kinds of things every day. So in this segment, Lauren, we're going to talk about when you're in retirement, you lose a spouse, kind of some of the next steps that you should be taking after this happens.
Yeah, the first step is just to take a break. Take a pause. You've already been through probably 2 weeks of just a mess of different decisions you have to make, different things that you're trying to track down. Maybe you didn't have necessarily in order or thought you had in order. So once all that initial mayhem is just out of the way, just take a break, pause, and try to recollect yourself, figure out what your next move is and what really the next 1 to 2 years of your life, what you really want it to look like. You know, reestablish what your community is, to take the grieving period, get all that stuff worked out the best you can, and try to really avoid making any big decisions. You know, unless it's decisions of support. Right? If you don't have any immediate family members here, you just don't feel like you have as much emotional support or support as what you need, and you need to uproot yourself and go closer to kids or grandkids or family, you know, that's a different type of decision. But try to avoid making any really big decisions until you've just been able to reestablish yourself, find a sense of normalcy, and figure out what's next for you, what's most important to you going forward for really the next 12 to 18 months.
And Abby, sometimes when this happens to the families that you guys work with, you tell them to take a little bit of time to identify some of the new goals in their lives.
Yeah, so goals from a gifting standpoint. So, you know, once you've worked through the grieving process and once you are, you know, in a place where you feel comfortable moving forward, as a widow, you know, you might decide, okay, I want to gift a certain amount to my grandchildren, or I have charities that I'm passionate about. I want to redevelop kind of my plan for what's left of this nest egg, and do some cool charitable things from that standpoint. So taking the time to work through the grieving process and reflect on those things then allows you to identify, okay, these are the things that I'm passionate about moving forward. But that takes time, so it's not something you want to rush into. An interesting statistic from a legacy planning standpoint, 80% of men, when they pass away, are married. If you had to guess what percentage of women are married when they pass away, what would you guess?
My guess would be low, just because we know that women live longer than men, but I don't know how low.
Yeah, so 80% of women are single when they pass away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whether it's, you know, because they chose to never marry, or they're widowed, or they're divorced. But that really, I mean, take a second to let that sink in. That really demonstrates that the majority of the legacy planning component falls on women, you know, in those situations.
And Lauren, we know that once a spouse passes, sometimes the logistical parts of retirement change.
Yeah, I mean, the 80% of women are going to be single when they pass, which means the vast majority of them have come from some kind of marital relationship where they have been divorced or their spouse passes. And that's why there's evidence that says women need to save an additional $200,000, $250,000 for their retirement because they are statistically going to live longer. And once your spouse passes, or if your spouse passes, logistically there are some changes. The big change is going to be your tax situation. The amount of tax or level of tax that you can pay on that same amount of income is going to increase, because after 1 year, or in some cases after 2 years of your spouse passing, now you're going to file as a single individual instead of a married couple. And the tax brackets for the same level of income are significantly higher if you file single as opposed to married, which means that will or can have a direct impact on the amount of money you actually get to spend to maintain your lifestyle. So as you're reevaluating what your life looks like, what you will need to come up with is, what's it going to cost you to do these things that you want to do? Is the level of spendable income that you have adequate to do that? Or do we need to rework the plan and say we need some additional income to get to the same level of spendable income, or the amount that you actually need to maintain your lifestyle? or we just need to work. I mean, we just need to make sure that all these different things that you're trying to accomplish can be funded with the resources that you have left, whether it's the survivorship Social Security benefits, any survivorship pension amounts, any survivorship annuities that you have, and the other investable assets that you have.
And that's why it's important to have a team, that you already hopefully have a relationship and are comfortable with, because you're going to need a tax professional to help you through some of these transitions, and you're going to need a financial professional to help you through some of the investment, redesign if it's necessary. You want to reevaluate those investments moving forward, make sure that they still make sense for you as a single person, male or female, and that they still fit into your risk tolerance as an individual. And then an attorney, you want to have all of those professionals on your team so that they can help you kind of re-establish all of the important components from a legacy standpoint, from a retirement planning standpoint, from an income planning standpoint. So there's a lot of moving parts in this type of life transition.
And we think about the moving parts of retirement. Becoming a widow is going to happen to a lot of people in retirement if you're in retirement and you're a married person. But it's just one of the many pieces. I mean, I'm thinking about healthcare costs and all of the other things that can happen. So this is one of the pieces you talk about of passport classes. But if people are thinking, okay, wait, there's more, the passport class will touch on a lot of other things, Lauren.
Yeah, the passport class does touch on a lot of these other issues that you will need to consider, whether you are a single individual going through retirement, or you are a couple going through retirement, or you are a couple going through retirement who loses your lifelong partner. And we need to address those things in the class, because these are a lot of times people don't start thinking about these things. I mean, these are not fun topics. The idea of losing your spouse is not a fun topic. So it's not something that you like to sit down over the kitchen table and talk about. But it needs to be addressed. You need to start thinking about some of these ramifications that could take place due to losing a spouse, which is why we do like to hit on it in the passport class. Okay, and we'll talk more about the passport class in the next segment, but this is the time when we like to share some of the questions that you're asking the team here. So Kelly in Indianola, she asked, how should I title my joint brokerage account with my spouse? So we'll answer the question, we'll kind of define what a brokerage account is, and we'll tell you a little bit more about how you can have your question answered right here on the show. You're watching Retiring Today.
You have worked for a long time. There are so many decisions to make about your retirement. How much income do you need? How not to run out of money? Now is your chance, and you get one shot to get it right. Attend Merkle Retirement Planning's Passport to Retirement. We will discuss how to create tax-free income, how to avoid the next market meltdown, and how to wring every dime out of Social Security. Your time is now. Classes fill quickly. Call or text today. Zero cost to attend.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation? Will you be there for my ball games? Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me. Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. Contact us today.
Welcome back to Retiring Today. Before the break, we shared with you a question that we've received here. Kelly in Indianola asked, how should I title my joint brokerage account with my spouse? Now, if you have a question for the team here, make sure that you give us a call or send us a text, and we'll try to answer it here on the show. The show is Retiring Today. But Abby, before you answer the question, Abby Huntrod, she's an investment advisor. Lauren Merkle, a certified financial planner. Before you answer the question, I personally needed a little bit of breakdown on the terms that were being used. They're not terms I use every day in my life. Maybe you out there do, maybe you don't. But just in case you're wondering a little bit more, so what does titling mean, and what does joint brokerage account mean?
So the joint brokerage portion of that question just means that it's a non-retirement account. So it is an after-tax account. Could be like checking or savings, could be an investment account at a custodian like TD Ameritrade or Fidelity. But it is an after-tax account, and you are taxed on the growth at the capital gains tax rate. So it's kind of that third bucket of money that we sometimes talk about on the show.
And then how you title it is just simply whose name's on the account. So if you're a married couple, do you have one name on the account? Do you have another name on the account? It's also, you can title it joint with rights of survivorship, which just means once one person passes, how does that money flow to the other individual? Joint with tenants in common. There's a lot of different ways you can title it. And the difference, it varies per state. So we're talking about the state of Iowa. So most married people, the way you would want to title these types of accounts, there's two different layers of titling. One is you want both of your names on the account. So joint with rights of survivorship. And what that does is one spouse passes, the other spouse immediately has control over that account, doesn't go through probate, there's not the 6-month minimum time frame to transfer the asset to the spouse. It's that spouse's money. That spouse can use that money then however they want to. Here's where most mistakes take place, Kelly, with titling of these types of accounts. Do the joint with rights of survivorship, however, put on an additional layer of titling that's called transfer on death for these brokerage accounts at custodians like TD Ameritrade or Fidelity. Or the banks call it, so if we're talking about your savings account or checking accounts, it's called payable on death. Both of those designations do the exact same thing, which means once you're both gone, now the money will transfer the most seamless way to the next generation, your kids, your grandkids, whoever you want that money to go to. If you leave the transfer on death or the payable on death designation off, now it's going to go through probate in order to get to where you want it to go. So it's just seamless. It doesn't cost you anything to do. Just contact your institution, tell them you want to put a POD or TOD on it, and then that's the best way to transfer your money when you're gone.
And we're talking about all of this today because we're talking about widowhood and retirement and how that changes retirement. We talked in the first segment about what you can do right now if you're still married and going to and through retirement. And then we're talking about what you do when you do lose your spouse in retirement. So Lauren, you're up now with kind of our takeaways from today's show.
The first takeaway is create a survivorship plan. Again, start with that conversation while you're both alive. Say, here's what we both envision to happen when one of us passes, and then create that survivorship plan for when one of you passes, and then for when both of you pass. And that first starts when you're both alive.
Abby, what about the legacy plan?
So if you've been a widow for a while and you've had some time to work through, that grieving process, now is a great time to kind of reevaluate what your legacy planning goals are and maybe implement some different gifting strategies or alter those legacy planning documents like the trust or the will, and really decide what it is that you want to have happen to what's left of your nest egg, because at the end of the day, that is most likely going to fall on the woman with the longer life expectancies. So it's a good opportunity once you're kind of in that life stage and you've dealt with the grief that comes with becoming a widow. Now what do you want to have happen to what it is that is left?
And Lauren, Abby kind of talked about the grieving stage. I mean, you don't have to feel like you're alone once you've lost a spouse in retirement.
Yeah, make sure you create a good team of experience around you. And there's a couple components to that. One is the financial side. And usually what we see within a marriage is and this is gender neutral, by the way, within a marriage, there's one of the two that generally take the lead on the financial aspect. So if you are the one of the two that has not taken the lead and you're not as involved in the financial aspect, now it's even more imperative that you make sure you find somebody, some kind of financial team or retirement planner to put on your team that you feel comfortable with, and you can design or redesign this plan going forward. So you need to make sure that the financial elements are taken care of, excuse me, but you also need to make sure that your social elements are taken care of as well. Many times when one spouse passes, the other spouse, they kind of feel lost. Their social circles, as we age, our social circles tend to get smaller. The world tends to get smaller, and so part of what we do as a total experience here at Merkle Retirement Planning is we have non-financial social engagements where our team and the families we work with can get together right here in our office. We have lunch and learns where we talk about non-financial, just fun stuff. You know, whether we have an NFL official come in and talk about
For all those widows who love NFL.
it is the most popular sport in
A
America.
lot of women watch football.
A lot of women watch
Yeah,
football.
they do.
And again, I'm going gender neutral, so
Yes,
it doesn't
yes,
matter
yes.
what you
I
are.
know.
Or whether we
Gardening,
do
yes.
a knitting class,
Yes.
or whether it's an off-site class where we go off-site and we like learn how to make margaritas. You know what?
Now
Whatever.
you're talking my language.
We do all kinds of things throughout the course of the year to just bring our families together and have a good time that has absolutely nothing to do about the financials, because your retirement is not all financial, and your retirement planning shouldn't just all be financial as well, because money doesn't mean anything if you don't have your health. And if you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not having fun in retirement, then it makes the financial, even if you're financially free, it makes it a lot less exciting.
And you talk about the learning opportunities, Lauren, in retirement. But before retirement, there's a really great learning opportunity, and it's called the Passport to Retirement classes. Abby, you guys hold these all throughout the state, and they're just a really good opportunity for people to come into an environment where they can at least start getting all the wheels turning of thinking about the plan, the comprehensive plan of retirement.
So the thing that we hear most often from people who attend the Passport class are that they just didn't know what they didn't know. And so the 5 components that we touch on in that class are the income planning piece, the tax planning piece, health care, long-term care planning, and how that should be incorporated into your plan, the legacy planning piece, and then the investment piece. So from a retirement planning perspective, those 5 components are very important to have incorporated within your retirement plan.
So I'm sure we've piqued the interest of some people watching, Lauren, the Passport class. How do we get signed up?
Yeah, we want to make this as simple as possible, so you don't even have to dial any numbers. All you have to do is text. There's a number on the screen. All you have to do is text Passport, and then our team will reach out to you within the next day or so and schedule you for a class that works well for your schedule.
Okay, what should I bring with me, Lauren?
Bring yourself, bring your smile, bring your willingness to learn and the ability to have fun. It's a very interactive class. We want to address your questions, and we want to cover all of these different things that so many pre-retirees are concerned about going to and through retirement. So the easy answer, bring yourself.
And you'll go through the workbook.
We'll go through the workbook. We'll go through the 5 different elements of the class. We oftentimes bring snacks. We bring some drink, non-alcoholic drink.
The margaritas.
All right.
And we'll have a lot of fun.
Okay, so that's the information on Passport. That's a great tool to get you to and through retirement. But so is this show. It's the show called Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
You have worked for a long time. There are so many decisions to make about your retirement. How much income do you need? How not to run out of money? Now is your chance, and you get one shot to get it right. Attend Merkle Retirement Planning's Passport to Retirement. We will discuss how to create tax-free income, how to avoid the next market meltdown, and how to wring every dime out of Social Security. Your time is now. Classes fill quickly. Call or text today. 0 cost to attend.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation? Will you be there for my ball games? Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me. Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. Contact us today.
From our family to yours, we hope you have a wonderful weekend.
We hope
You enjoy the show. Dinner Greek.